what up? This is going to be my WWE TNA and Ring of Honor thoughts of the week. The first thing I want to get to is obviously the biggest thing of the week, which is William Regal's suspension. He has been suspended for 60 days, and this is his second offense of the wellness policy. Basically, the only update to this is that WWE is unaware of what substance he failed for because the trace elements were so small. Now, obviously, I don't know if I could say this is showing that WWE's wellness policy is working or it's not working. Obviously, you had two big suspensions this year that both of the wrestlers were getting huge pushes. In Jeff Hardy's case, he was going to probably most likely be the one to win the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania and be a future world champion. But obviously his suspension changed that, and they went in another route of having CM Punk win it. Obviously Regal, he was in a big role. This is probably Regal's biggest push that Regal has ever had in his whole entire WWE career, and you know that's been thrown out the window with his suspension. And don't know what they're going to do when he returns back. Obviously I expect him to be on a different brand, or possibly they might just, do what most wrestling companies do when they do this whole, fired angle. They'll somehow get back on the show. So they'll probably go in some route in that. Because this wellness policy shows it's working. That two wrestlers that were getting big pushes obviously are getting punished for failed in wellness policy tests. But on the other hand, obviously you have wrestlers within the WWE that are obviously on something, or obviously they're definitely on something, as in, the Triple H's, Batista's, Randy Orton's, and John Cena's. Obviously, in the most part there, Triple H gets away because he's a part of the family. Orton and Batista, they basically get away with it probably because they're friends with Triple H. And John Cena, he's one of those guys that, you speculate he's using something, but none of these guys I can say definitely are on something because they haven't failed a test, and I don't got any evidence they are, but you can just look at them and tell that they're on something. If they're not, it would really, really shock me. So this is obviously showing some obviously favoritism with some of the talents. Jeff Hardy and William Regal are two of those talents that got punished, and they're making an example of, whereas other performers are still with WWE and still on TV, and they don't ever fail tests or anything. But that's just the way a business is run. There's going to be favoritism. And then on to probably the only TNA news that's gone on this week, or any of the TNA talk that's actually worth talking about, is TNA and the Ultimate Warrior are in talks. Now, some of you are going to be shocked at what I'm about to say, because obviously a lot of you are probably expecting me to say, fuck this, do not do this at all, and it's terrible to do. Now, obviously, if it's a full-time thing, this would be one of the worst moves TNA can make. Now, if it's one of those kind of Pac-Man Jones deals, like for a 2 to 3 month basis, and that's all he's going to be there for, I could see a little in this, because before I seen the footage of him returning in the Italy promotion, I think NWE, New Wrestling Evolution, I was expecting, not that big of a crowd. Then when I saw the footage, there's actually a big crowd there, and none of those wrestlers there are really big names. You had the Sean Waltmans, Juventud, Orlando Jordan, and Ultimate Warrior, and I'm shocked that, they had a big following there, but I guess wrestling, overseas draws more than what it does in the U.S., obviously. So TNA is obviously trying to bank on the Warriors' return. It's not a terrible thing to do. Obviously, if you do something with Ultimate Warrior and Sting at Bound for Glory, I wouldn't mind it. It would be one of those things that, for some fans, it'll have nostalgia behind it, and some fans will like seeing it. Do I think it's going to be one of those things to garner attention to TNA and their ratings are going to gradually increase to, a high level? No, but it's not going to be a terrible business move. TNA has done a whole lot worse than Ultimate Warrior, and he's not, it's not the worst thing to do, but it's not the smartest thing to do. But, this possibly could work out for him. Obviously, they're doing this thing with Sting talking about his past, so maybe they'll incorporate the Ultimate Warrior in there, and then, have their match, which it'll be a terrible match, but it'll be one of those matches that I know people will be interested in. Not necessarily me, but, the majority of the audience, I think, will enjoy it and like to see it. So, it's good for business, I guess. Then on to, lastly, some Ring of Honor news. And the Ring of Honor news this week, the hugest news of this week is the return of Lance Storm to Ring of Honor action. Hasn't really been announced if this is just going to be an appearance or he's going to be wrestling. Hopefully he will be wrestling because I would love to see him and Nigel. Him and Danielson again will be great. And the main thing I would love to see is him and Aries. I think that would be an incredible match. Fans, Ring of Honor fans and wrestling fans in general that are in the Toronto area on July 25th, we'll see Lance Storm make his return to Ring of Honor. And the night after, Ring of Honor will be taping. The night after, Ring of Honor will be taping its 8th pay-per-view in Detroit, Michigan, and Lance Storm will be on that event as well. So definitely good news for Ring of Honor, and glad he's coming back. Ring of Honor, and the good thing about good news from Ring of Honor, it looks like after the 6th pay-per-view, that the speculation, a lot of people thought that was going to be the last pay-per-view that they were going to have. Obviously, that has changed because they have dates for the 7th and 8th pay-per-view. I already told you about the 8th one. The 7th one is going to be on June 6th. And 2 incredible matches already signed for this event, which is Roderick Strong versus Eric Stevens in a fight without honor, which should be incredible, and it should be a great way for them to end the feud. And then you got Bryan Danielson and Austin Aries versus the Age of the Fall of Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black. So those are 2 incredible matches that are going to be part of the Respectus Earn 2 taping on June 7th. And the night before that, Ring of Honor is going to be having a tag team tournament in Hartford, Connecticut, to crown the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Hopefully it'll be Kevin Steen and El Generico, because I think they are long overdue of being Ring of Honor Tag Champs, and hopefully they will be the ones to do it. But I'm not sure about that, because they have them going against, I think, Go Shiozaki and Nigel McGuinness in the first round. So unless they do something where Nigel, goes out and turns on Go Shiozaki and doesn't help him or something, it looks like Go Shiozaki and Nigel will probably be the ones advancing in round one, but hopefully that will not happen. Because I don't see Nigel and Go Shiozaki being tag champs. And I can't see Nigel being the first, double champion in Ring of Honor and the first guy in Ring of Honor to hold all the titles, the Ring of Honor title, the Pure title, and the World title. So I can't see that happening. And other good news from Ring of Honor is the 2 DVDs, Stars of Honor and Bloodstained Honor, which are national retail stores in Best Buy and FYE. There has been huge demands of these DVDs. So within the next 7 to 10 business days, it's going to be more likely that you're going to be able to find these in stores. Obviously in FYE, not sure about Best Buy because they kind of do the dumbass route of having the DVDs but not having them in the store, and you have to order them online. Not sure if they actually mean in Best Buy they're going to be in the store, but hopefully they will. And this is going to be, further exposure for Ring of Honor. It's going to be really helping their business as a whole. Then on to the last thing, which is Ring of Honor's next pay-per-view, Ring of Honor Take No Prisoners, which is going to air on pay-per-view May 30th, next Friday, which should be a very good pay-per-view. And I've heard good reviews of Nigel McGuinness's match, which I'm not going to spoil it because there's a match earlier in the night, which is going to be the person qualifying to take on Nigel McGuinness, but I've heard it's good. And Austin Aries and Bryan Danielson have a match on here, and it's going to be their first match they've had on pay-per-view, so definitely looking forward to this pay-per-view. And obviously other pay-per-views, WWE is going to have the One Night Stand pay-per-view on June 1st. WWE needs to really cut back on having so many pay-per-views. It's only 2 weeks after Judgment Day. Then 3 weeks later, you have the Night of Champions. So almost in a month span, you have 3 WWE pay-per-views. And obviously you have the Ring of Honor pay-per-view and the TNA pay-per-view. So obviously not every wrestling fan is going to order all those pay-per-views. Possibly, 2 of them wrestling fans will order, but not all of them. They really need to cut back on how many they do. It's too much asking wrestling fans to go out their way and spend $80 a month or more if you want to see TNA and you want to see Ring of Honor as well. So definitely WWE is going to, obviously the buy rates are going to be hurt for One Night Stand. Obviously you got the gimmick matches, so possibly that's going to help their buy rates, but after only being 2 months away from from Judgment Day, I think it's obviously too quick to do it. They should have probably waited at least till the 15th to do this pay-per-view. Obviously, they couldn't do the 8th because of TNA already having a pay-per-view schedule. So that's just my thoughts of WWE TNA and Ring of Honor of this week. And yeah, that's it. Peace. Obviously, Regal, he was in a big role. This is probably Regal's biggest push that Regal has ever had in his whole entire WWE career. And, you know, that's been thrown out. What up? This is going to be my WWE TNA and Ring of Honor thoughts of the week. The first thing I want to get to is obviously the biggest thing of the week, which is William Regal's suspension. He has been suspended for 60 days. Obviously, I don't know if I could say this is showing that WWE's wellness policy is working or it's not working. Obviously, you had two big suspensions this year that both of the wrestlers were getting huge pushes. In Jeff Hardy's case, he was going to probably most likely be the one to win the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania and be a future world champion. But obviously his suspension changed that, and they went in another route of having CM Punk win. And this is his second offense of the wellness policy. Basically, the only update to this is that WWE is unaware of what substance he fell for because the trace elements were so small. Now,